Hey guys, here we are with a small set of gear because we've got a soap sample today. This is Declaration Grooming Bangarang, a recent soap for them in the Milksteak base. And I am going to try a new to me brush. The handle was made by Rudy Vay, and he's popular over on the Badger and Blade, I believe, forum, website type thing. And this has the Muhle silver tip fiber synthetic knot in it. I am probably going to gamble 99% sure that this is going to suck, that this is not going to match how I like brushes to behave, because this feels like it has kind of the same amount of backbone as the Plasson types, the probably not as much of a tuxedo, but maybe even the cashmeres and the Timberwolves and all those nice synthetics that have such great tips, but they have a lot of springiness and stiffness in the shafts that give it a lot of backbone, and that is not me at all. And so, if that ends up to be the case, then you'll hear me fuss and you'll hear me say things like "this sucks," perhaps. And please remember that what I mean is this sucks for me. This is not what matches my own preference. So that's what we're talking about here. Other people, it might match them. It might, especially people who like to paint and don't do the splaying and the scrubbing like that. My friend HD on HD Shaves, he's got a great YouTube channel, and he does mostly the painting motions. And so then he doesn't have to worry as much about that whole backbone issue with synthetics and stuff. I think he's been using more natural brushes from what I've heard him talk about, but I bet maybe he uses scents too. Anyway, on with the gear. I just got in a blue tip silver speed. I have used the black tip, the standard, and the red tip, and now I finally completed my collection with the blue tip. And this one is on the lighter side. The red is on the heavier side, the slightly more aggressive side. With the head angle, I believe my research said that the head was slightly more aggressive in terms of exposure or whatever it used to make it more aggressive. The blue is on the other end of the spectrum. And I think the black might be somewhere in the middle, and so is the normal flare tip that looks something like this. I've got a couple of flare tips to show you in comparison. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we're going to because I'm going to compare some flare tips. I'm going to compare this with this other really cool new addition. This is another flare tip. This is a flare tip from the UK, a super speed, or rather a rocket flare tip from England. You can tell the plating is superior, and it's got some other differences, and I'm really looking forward to using it. Now, typically, when the UK makes kind of a version of an American razor, I often find that I like the UK version better, not only in quality, but the smoothness of the shave. And so just in case that's, again, what happens, I'm going to start off with the American version, and the next shave will be with the UK version, and we'll see what the difference might be. So there we go. I don't need to put the brush in the water because it's a synthetic, and so you just need to run a little bit of water in it right before you load up. Let's talk about the razors and the differences between these super speeds. I don't know actually if this rocket flare tip can be considered a super speed. If it is considered a super speed, the rocket may be what it is instead of being a super speed. But let's take a look at some of the differences. Well, here's the obvious difference. You've got a gap right here above the flare knob, the flared knob. Also, with the blue tip, you can see the knurling is very different. This one has small rectangles. You can mainly see the vertical lines, the vertical grooving, and then we also have horizontal grooving with it's a cross-hatching lattice type knurling within each of the tiny squares. With the American blue tip, You do have the verticals. You don't really have too much horizontal, but you have, and then the individual tiny rectangles have vertical knurlings or notches, vertical grooves, tiny vertical grooves. And so a slightly different look. Of course, this one has the painted blue tip. Of course, on the underside of the heads, you'll see one made in USA, one made in England, that sort of thing. There's some other interesting differences that show the quality. The plating was so much better in the UK back then. The base plate is a little bit more angular here, a little flatter and taking on more angles, while the stamping just wasn't as accurate here. The bends seem to be a little bit more casual, less precise, less crisp, and something that you could almost miss, this center rail. Here it's solid one piece. Here it has been folded. And this is the crease. And you can see the line right there that it's been folded. And likewise, that same piece from the center bar, as it goes out, it then turns left. One side turns left, the other side turns right. And then this is an end cap that covers those two. And that's soldered into place on both ends. But with the UK version, this being all one piece, the center bar, then this is one piece, and then these are not end caps. This is actually all one piece with the center bar and all that. So just better engineering. I guess maybe they had a better sales market over there because they were able to really put things together better. And so maybe they had a stronger support base, a lot more money coming in, something like that. And so it definitely looks like a better made razor. Of course, geometry doesn't care how well it's made. If this one holds the angle, holds the blade in a way that doesn't work with my shaving, then perhaps the American-made one is going to win the day. So we'll see. We'll just see. So there are some things, some differences there between the two super speeds. And then if we want to compare the, I should have maybe started out with comparing the UK rocket flare tip with a super speed flare tip from America. But in a sense, a lot of the things are the same. The center rail here is split in the same way. Now this one actually does not have end caps. This is all a similar piece. This is still here folded, but and this one needs a good cleaning. I kind of shaved with it once. This one is kind of a rough one. It's like the guy filed off 3 of the sides here. See there? This side shows more of the normal knurling. This is the one side where he didn't file off. I don't know if he was trying to give himself something flat to where he could, tell where the angles were. I don't really know. But this is kind of a freebie razor for me, and I had it on hand, and so I thought I'd bring it in. And so it's definitely not quite as precise in the angling of the base plate and that sort of thing. And it does have, you still have that same gap here. Over here you don't. You do have a notch, but it's not a gap. It's a notch in the whole handle. It's not a gap between the knob and the handle. So American-made super speed, British-made rocket flare tip. Super speed flare tip, rocket flare tip. The tops look pretty similar from the top. Oh, now look at the heads. The American flare tip is a slimmer head by quite a bit, relatively speaking. That's interesting. So this may put the blade at a different curve that could be advantageous. We'll just have to see. So we'll talk about some super speeds there. There's a 40 style super speed, which has normal checking here and normal checking type knurling, and then there's no flare tip. It doesn't get bigger, the knob here. It just stays parallel. The sides are parallel and not flared out. That's what we call it, the 40 style. I really like that one. Shaved with it recently. All right, folks. So this will be the next shave. The Rocket Flare Tip from the UK. And this will be today's shave, the blue tip. So let's put the Gillette Silver Blue, the GSD, into it. And this is maybe the 10th use, something like that. This is a great condition. Nice model to have. So he's all loaded up. I have no idea. Well, I'm just kidding. I guess what I meant was, I don't think there's a way that this is going to be an enjoyable brush. But let's give it a chance. This came as part of a set. And I thought, this came with actually it came with the Rocket Flare Tip. And I thought, you know what? Let me go ahead and just buy the whole lot. And it'll give you a chance to test out the Muhle silver tip fiber knot. Probably won't go well, but I'll try it out. Number two, maybe I like that handle. It's kind of got a classic shaving look to it. It's a little on the short side, but it's a little stocky. It's possible I could really like the handle, in which case I'll yank this knot, put a new knot in it. So that could be a win. And Rudy Vey is an artist in certain circles that is definitely well known, and I've seen some of his work, and I like a lot of it. So that's very cool. So that's kind of why I have a synthetic that I think is probably going to go wrong. Now, with the Bangarang here, notes of rain, petrichor, leaves, a little bit of bay, and a few florals. Fortunately, the florals are a little bit on the muted side. This is an homage to a movie I have enjoyed for many years, Hook. And I suppose it's really not an homage necessarily to that movie specifically, but just to the childlike play and the time we spent outdoors sometimes, just having fun and just some outdoorsy notes in the foresty kind of things. And so the 1/4 teaspoon is very handy with this. This is a little smaller size sample, and you might be tempted to use up a lot more soap than you really need to if you don't measure it out. And so I want this to give me as many samples as I can. So I've got about a 1/4 teaspoon here. It's a very soft soap. I'm going to press it into the bottom of my lather bowl. The movie Hook is, my kids do definitely like it. And they're not old like me. They're of the newer generation. They're 8 and 9 or 8 and 10 or something like that. And they still like it, or at least they did last time we watched it. And so I think it does kind of carry on a good bit. But that kind of came around, I don't know, it's just a special movie, and my wife and I really liked it. Really good flick. I like Robin Williams. And of course, they were doing the story of kind of a different take on the Peter Pan story, if you're not familiar with that movie. And there we go. And you can smell it. You can smell those florals. You can smell the aquatic note. It's almost fruity. He didn't list fruits, and so that could be the aquatic combining with the floral notes. We'll just see how it pans out when it becomes a lather. Hopefully a quarter teaspoon of the Milksteak will be all we need to use. All right, I'm going to get my face wet and then we'll start working on this lather. Okay. Didn't shake the brush out quite as much as I wanted to, and so we kind of instantly had some water pour out of the brush, but that is just probably not going to be an issue at all. Positive things that we can say about these synthetic brushes is that they travel well. You don't have to worry about the mold ruining the brush quite as much as you do with the natural bristles. They are much more quick to dry, and so that's another reason they travel well. Synthetics are not all bad. And of course, if you like backbone, then a synthetic is going to be a good choice for you. Almost all the synthetics I've tried have had too much backbone for me. And people always say they're so soft, and it's because of the tips. It's because the tips are what are amazingly soft. They're all engineered to be super soft. But when they have that shovey, pushy, aroundy backbone with them, it kind of negates the softness of the tips. Now, of course, I think a brush with a lot of backbone, if it gets used by a person who loads a little bit too much soap, and so they have a lather that's a little too dry, then that's going to hide a little bit of that backbone with the brush. And so maybe it works out okay for them. I wish I were getting more foresty notes than I am. It's mainly the florals and the aquatic. So far, the brush handle, it's kind of like that new series from Semogue, the Torga C5, the C3, those guys. It's a similar shape to that with a saddle here on the back third of the brush handle. Look at the lather consistency here. That's whole. Look at the way that tip held together. It's still staying together, not very fluid, not very elastic. So I think I will add another half teaspoon. Short handle like this does usually mean that my fingertips get a little messy. Part of it has some nice elasticity there. I think I'm going to add another half, and then that might do it. That might be just 2 teaspoons that I added. I believe it's because turns out I had quite a bit of water in the brush, even though I did shake it out some. Lather looks terrific, nice gloss on it. I also may leave it a little more dry than I might think because number one, the Milksteak does have some butters and creams and not creams, but butters and oils and other substances in there to help with moisturization. So a lot of times those types of soaps need to be run a little drier than I might like. They don't get quite elastic and creamy when they get ultra hydrated. And also with this Chevy brush, I think I might like a thicker lather. So why don't we just use what we see right here. Get my face wet again. All right, here we go. Yep, sure enough, the tips are nice and soft. It does have a good bit of backbone, but it's not really offending too bad yet. Yeah, when I do, it's mainly when I change directions. See, there's so much backbone that if I go one way and then I switch, if I were able to, if I wanted to paint the whole time, then I could do that and it wouldn't be as bad. I'm going to add a little bit more water to the brush here. And that is what happens with these springy brushes. They kind of flick the lather. Yeah, staying in the splay is quite a chore with this brush. And actually, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit of pokiness from the tips. And so I think the other ones, the Plaisans and the Timberwolves and the Cashmeres, are better than this Muhle silver tip fiber. Working it in the splay is just a real chore, and then I'm actually feeling some prickliness. Can you imagine that? Some prickliness from a synthetic. Lots of backbone, so it might be just the right brush for somebody. Definitely not me. All right. Got plenty of lather. Woo! Yeah, no problem there. Bowl is got a few different passes in there. Rinsing off my hands, and I can feel how slick that lather is. That's great. Now, do I still smell just kind of the florals? Yeah, florals and aquatic. That's what I'm getting. Okay, blue tip, United States made, super speed, vintage Gillette. Supposed to be one of the milder ones. It's also lighter. The handle might even be aluminum, probably going for such a light razor. Yeah, I can feel how light it is. I'll bet if I had multiple days growth, you could kind of feel yourself pulling the razor through the hair. It's given me a nice shave though. I'm happy about the lack of a lot of the chatter. The blade edge feels pretty well supported, consistent. Kind of liking that. for the first pass, and you can tell that lather's a little too thick. I usually don't end up with this kind of leftover, this kind of sparse leftover that's almost on the pasty side. So I could add some more lather, some water to the lather if I wanted, but I don't think I will. I think it'll probably improve by itself. Just leave a little bit of water on my face when I rinse, that sort of thing. All right. I did not expect this knot to be rated worse than those other synthetics that I mentioned. That's kind of a surprise. So if you like the Muhle silver tip fiber, if you like the backbone, but you want more softness and less kind of pokiness and prickle with the tips, then I can recommend a whole host of other synthetics. Like I was saying, the Cashmere, Timberwolf, Plisson type, maybe even the Tuxedo. Tuxedo definitely softer tips, but it has a good bit of backbone to it. The Motherlode, that's the one I like. It's a whole different level of softness with the bristles and how they bend and have a lot less backbone. It's just on a different level. I've heard it's a different kind of makeup brush fiber that's being used, and so that one bends easily. I can keep it in the splay easily. The tips are crazy nutty soft. So that is my synthetic right there. Yeah, see, this lather is creamier, wetter. It's just the way the second pass goes sometimes. I do find that I'm having to put a little bit more pressure on the razor because it's so light. I can't let the weight of the razor and momentum and things like that come into play here because they just don't. So you got to be careful with that. As usual, my usual really light touch, just holding it kind of in the middle. It can still move around. The florals are just a little bit too strong in this soap for me. That's really too bad because due to its namesake, I was really kind of feeling drawn to this particular soap, but maybe in his boyhood, Scott had a few more florals than I did. Of course, it also could just be perception. That's a really big, real thing. I think somebody, maybe Ben from Mammoth, said that your perception of a scent can vary up to 40% from somebody else. And so it could be that Scott gets a whole different nose full of the different notes. And if I got more of leaves and kind of forest undergrowth, and I don't even think I'm getting very much bay either. If I got more of those notes, I probably have a whole different view about this particular scent. I feel like I'm getting a good shave. And let's rinse. All right, third pass. Glad that I'm not going to be using this knot anymore after this shave. It does not match up to what I prefer. I think Rudy likes to put epoxy in his knots, so I may contact him. I might try to steam that out. It could ruin the handle. But if I want to keep that handle, I'm definitely going to have to, I'll have to steam it out if he didn't use silicone. If he did use silicone, I'll try just pulling on it consistently, and obviously that's something I can try even if I don't before I actually check with him. Oh yeah, just a really nice shave here. Really happy with this. Geometry of the blade. I do wish that the razor were a little heavier. But it's just ultra comfortable right now, very smooth. Okay, now let's take the opposite cross grain approach and see what happens. Oh, that's pretty nice. Handling that very well. I can't go too far though, or I start to get against the grain and some irritation will ensue. Light touch, light touch. Yeah, that lather could have used a little bit more water, but it's pretty good. Great little razor. I do have some length and some tips right there, and even though I kind of dried myself off already, why don't we hit that area one more time? Not going to bear down any harder. Not going to stretch the skin too much more. Just tread lightly. And sometimes it fails. Sometimes you risk, you get in there to try to get those extra tips off, and it's just not going to work that day. Maybe your technique is off. Maybe with me, I think the hair just lays so close to the skin. It's just really tricky. I believe just a little bit more than 2 teaspoons of water was added to the lather, so it didn't need too much. Maybe half a teaspoon extra might have been in the brush from the start. The lather was nice. The razor was excellent in terms of feel. Oh, I believe I did get some extra bit of tips off there. Yeah, I dried myself off, and I really did. So that turned into a pretty good shave. Have you guys ever noticed as well that sometimes when you are looking at the shave at the end and the closeness, you make a note of it, and then 20 minutes later you look and you check again and it's even better? Like somehow the hair has receded, something like that, and so you're actually even getting closer than you're looking at. I've noticed that a good many times. So here's a better look at the handle here. It's just a nice weight. It's pretty heavy for its size and a great color. It's got a nice classic look. I did find that the grip was really good on it during the shave. I didn't have any complaints about that. The only thing is that because it's so short, my hand has to go a good ways into the bowl here to work. And so I'm kind of bumping my fingers on the edges and that sort of thing. And so that's the one thing that might make me just pass the whole thing on instead of trying to yank the knot and putting a preferred knot inside this very nice handle. And I think this handle is just going to be really excellent, especially for somebody who face lathers instead of bowl lathering. All right, we'll see what I end up doing with that. Just finishing up, putting on my balm. We have some Dunshire balm from Stirling. Does a great job with my skin. And there we go. All right. I don't think very much of the soap scent carried on. I did smell it as I was cleaning things up. That soap makes me notice some very different things in the Dunshire that I hadn't really got before. That is really interesting. Kind of more green, fibrous, maybe some woody notes, and I never picked those up because this is based on Acquadigio, an aquatic, got some aquatic notes to it, and so my nose could have been used to the aquatic parts by the time I got to it now as a balm because of the aquatics in the Bangarang. And so maybe that's why I'm smelling something different. Pretty cool. Well, there we go. I am really looking forward to trying the Rocket flare tip tomorrow, seeing how it compares. It's really got to be good. I mean, to obviously beat the one I just used, the blue tip. Blue tip was very nice. I really enjoyed the shave. All right, guys, I hope there's been something in this shave that's good for you to help you out. You take care. Stay safe. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.